So sticking with a theme that I've been talking about throughout this presentation is key relationships to support you and sometimes to challenge you. And so drawing a little bit from chapter 6 in the Chief Online Learning Officer's Guidebook, um, there are a few things to maybe keep in mind that can help you cultivate and grow those key relationships. Maybe the first thing I'll say though is that I don't care what your title is, everybody is a leader. Maybe a different kind of leader. You may have domain expertise. If you'll indulge me, a very quick story. I was on an airplane one time, and the gentleman sitting next to me had a medical emergency and ended up on his back in the aisle of the airplane while we were in air. And the flight attendants broke out the medical kits and the AED out of the overhead bins, and they did that announcement. Is there a doctor on board? And fortunately, there was a paramedic on board who came up from the back of the plane and attended to the person, and he was fine. They took him off when we landed. Um, but it occurred to me afterwards, as I was thinking about it, that sitting on the other side of that aisle from me could have been the CEO of IBM, big leader, you know, could have been the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and I don't care what that person would have said in that situation. I would have wanted that paramedic. The paramedic was the leader in that moment because he had domain expertise. And it's maybe less extreme and life-threatening, but in your case, it's something similar. It doesn't matter what position you have. You have a leadership responsibility in that hierarchy. So you can lead up, you can lead sideways, you can lead down, all those different directions. So that's the first thing I'll say. As you're thinking about your place in these relationships. So maybe the first is sort of internal responsibilities and the associated relationships. And the first one is maybe engaging with these governance channels. If you're in a senior leadership position, do you interface with your board of directors, your board of trustees, whatever the board structure is, board of regents? Do you interact with them? And if so, they're great allies to bring into the cause and to definitely keep informed as much as you can for what you're doing. But there may be other kinds of governance. There may be a faculty advisory board. There may be an IT advisory board. You may have any number of sorts of governance structures on your campus for the work that you're doing. You may have program, external industry advisory boards. So all of that's really important to make sure you understand your place and how you can support them, but in turn, enlist them to support you. And then likewise, other internal relationships are your team, your staff. And that can be staff that directly reports to you if you are in a hierarchical leadership position. But it can also be colleagues, right? As I said, anybody can be a leader. It just depends on the circumstance and the project and the moment. So on a particular project, you may be the most expert, and so you need to step up and provide that kind of leadership. Um, it's important that you also sort of seek out internal partners and, if it makes sense, confidants where you can kind of confidently and confidentially uh, bounce ideas off of, because we're collectively smarter than we are individually, and I know I personally really value the ability to kind of run an idea past a colleague and get a sanity check on it. And even if I decide to do my own thing or not take that advice, I think it makes it stronger. Iron sharpens iron to bounce up against other ideas and get them challenged, and they almost always will cause me to at least refine it and adjust it to make it more meaningful and stronger. Um, External relationships. So I mentioned this a little bit. So maybe you have an external advisory board, or maybe you have an industry advisory board, or maybe you have a direct interface with parents or an employer. partner that you're working with. All of these are kind of external folks that you kind of need to help manage. Maybe it's the media. I've had to talk to the media a lot in my job. During COVID, I felt like I got propped up as the online learning guy for every outlet that wanted to talk to us, including Telemundo. My Spanish is not great, but got by. So yeah, managing those external relationships and again, uh, building some credibility on your own part and enlisting them as allies, both for advice, which is really important, but also in sort of direct support, like review this thing or give us some counsel that could have a budgetary impact, whatever it might be. There's another topic that sort of shows up in chapter 6, and it's something I've talked a lot about. I didn't make this up. I read it or somebody told me about it, but this concept of invisible work. So the work that gets done that really keeps the trains moving in your unit that people don't really see. And sometimes you don't notice that invisible work until that person doing it is gone. And then you realize, holy cow, there was an awful lot of stuff going on under the water, under the surface that you just didn't see. Whether that's working with internal partners on campus, understanding who to call, filling out reports, compliance. Oh my gosh, compliance has been a big one that's sort of been invisible work that's grown up over the years, whether it's NC SARA or state reporting. State of Florida requires reports every 3 days, it feels like. So yeah, there's an awful lot of invisible work that goes on. And that work almost always feels like it's dependent upon good, solid work relationships with colleagues, typically outside of your direct, unit. The people that you work with every day in the same division or college or unit. More so, maybe like so. In our case, we're a central support unit. For me, the invisible work would be coordinating with academic councils or the curriculum committees or schedulers or advisors or whoever it might be on campus that we need to coordinate with in a way that ensures that both sides are getting what they need. But it kind of shows up in the other duties as assigned category of the job description, which can over time grow inordinately big. So yeah, I would encourage you to, again, this is the theme of everything that I've been saying, to be intentional about how you establish and cultivate and maintain these relationships on campus. It is a uniquely human endeavor here in higher ed, and those relationships can bear fruit for many years to come. It helps to establish your relationship. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And then maybe follow up and say, hey, I want to let you know I did this thing that we talked about and close the loop on it. And you'll build professional credibility, which will also help to strengthen those relationships. So we've got some great contributions by some authors in chapter 6. If you happen to have the book, I would encourage you to check them out. Cheryl Murphy, MJ Bishop, Chris Steele, and Asher Hayes. They're all really expert in this area, and they've all lived it in the world of online learning.